Okay, so I have to talk about this weekend, the box office this weekend. The two movies that are neck and neck right now, which are Send Help by Sam Raimi and Iron Lung by Markiplier, the famous YouTuber Markiplier and the famous film director Sam Raimi are currently neck and neck. Send Help is an original script that is under 20th Century Studios, which is under Disney, and Iron Lung is a adaptation of the video game by the same name, and it's being done completely independently by Markiplier. And if you don't know who either of these people are, Sam Raimi is a famous director and writer who is best known for doing the Spider-Man movies starring Tobey Maguire in the early 2000s, and also for creating my personal favorite horror franchise, Evil Dead. Markiplier is a extremely popular YouTuber, probably the most famous YouTuber of them all, to be honest, who's been doing this for 13 years, and he has a very, very dedicated, almost rabid, almost cult-like fan base. And I say this as someone who is a casual fan of Mark. I'm not a hardcore fan, but I've been following him since he first arrived on the scene on YouTube, like literally since his very first video. Um, and I've been a fan of Sam Raimi since I want to say 10 or 11, maybe. I'm in my 30s now. I love both of these guys, and I support both of them. So it's interesting to see both of them be neck and neck at the box office. And personally, I feel like if you can, go support their movies. If you can see both, see both. If you can only see one, then I'm not going to tell you which one to see because I don't think that's fair. Also, there's no way of knowing for sure which one would be perfect for you, the viewer. So I would just say pick one and see it, and hopefully you enjoy it. But I have seen both. I've seen Send Help twice now. I saw an early screening weeks ago, and then I saw it in 40X last night. And then tonight I went and saw Iron Lung, and I love both of them. For Send Help, the writers, they did the Freddy vs. Jason movie, and they've done a couple of other things. This is an original script, and they were able to sell the script to 20th Century Studios and get Sam Raimi attached to it. I think they said that Sam Raimi was who they wanted to make their movie, and so this is the first time Sam has done a horror movie in 15 years, I think. So it's like before Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which he directed. The last time he directed a movie was back in, I think, 2009 when he did Drag Me to Hell. So that was his last movie before doing Multiverse of Madness, and his last superhero movie, was in 2007 with Spider-Man 3. And so this is now two movies he's done within the past, 4 years, but both are milestones because first time he's done a superhero movie in however many years, and first time he's done a horror movie in however many years. And horror movies are obviously his roots because, again, the Evil Dead franchise. And it's just interesting, this situation, because the original Evil Dead was an indie horror film. It had no studio backing. It was Sam Raimi, Rob Tapper, Bruce Campbell self-financing the movie, taking out loans and borrowing money from whoever they could to get that movie made and released. And granted, the theatrical release, they did hook up with New Line Cinema, but aside from that, that film was completely independent. And that that movie is such a huge inspiration on so many people, myself included, and it's one of the reasons why that franchise is my favorite horror franchise of all time. And if it weren't for being a fan of Sam Raimi, and if it weren't for being a fan of the Evil Dead franchise, I would not be not only who I am today, but where I am today as a person and as an actor. I owe so much to Sam Raimi and everyone involved with the creation of The Evil Dead and the franchise as a whole. And for that franchise still going strong to this day, this year being the 45th anniversary of the franchise, and a new movie, Evil Dead Burn, coming out. Senhelp was amazing. The script was top notch. The acting, obviously, from Dylan O'Brien and Rachel McAdams, absolutely incredible. Just everything about it. Shannon and Swift did an incredible job with the script. There were some great twists and turns, and in terms of having Sam Raimi bring the script to life with the tools and the crew and actors that he got, I loved it. It's everything you would want out of a Sam Raimi movie of the horror genre if you're familiar with Sam's work, to the point where my sister, who I don't know what she's seen of Sam, I would assume that she only knows what little she knows from me being her brother, because I don't recall her ever seeing anything. But like after she was like, oh my god, that movie was so fucking good. And she's like, and I could tell it was very Sam Raimi in terms of this, that, and the other, the horror, the grossness of the bodily fluids and the dark humor and stuff like that. So Sin Help was just really, really fucking good, and I'm so glad it exists. And people complain all the time about we need more original movies. There's not enough original movies out there. Well, this is an original movie. Yes, it's financed by a big studio, but it's still an original movie that you should support. On the flip side, in terms of an adaptation, especially a video game to film adaptation, which they're hit and miss, that's a whole nother conversation. This video is already way longer than I intended it to be, so I'm not going to go too in depth there, but it's interesting how with Iron Lung, it's an adaptation of a pre-existing IP. Granted, the video game also is an indie game, completely made independently, and became a huge hit. And then Markiplier, he wanted to do a film adaptation of it, and now here we are. It's been neck and neck for number one at the box office with a Sam Raimi movie, which is incredible, to be honest. If they could both be tied at number one, that's what I would hope, but like the phrase in Highlander, there can be only one. So I'm rooting for both, though. Whoever comes out on top, it's like no matter who wins, we all win, realistically. But in terms of Iron Lung, I've never played the game, but I will say this: normally when you have a movie that is an adaptation of pre-existing material, one of the things that you hope happens is people checking out the adaptation, whether it be a film or a TV show, will be like, oh, this is really good. Now I'm curious about, the original thing. Let me go check out the original thing. And I was already familiar with Iron Lung before because, I'm a fan of Mark. And so, like, I've seen his videos about the game, and I've seen him talk about the process of getting this movie made, but I never played it myself. And now, after seeing the movie, even though realistically I may know all that there is to know that is in the game and what could possibly happen in the game, I still now have more interest in playing the game for myself after having seen the movie, even though the game is somewhat different from, well, not somewhat, very different from the movie. I still have interest in checking it out. And that is a testament to how great of a job Mark did with Iron Lung. And it's interesting because one of the things Mark has said is that he hopes that this movie is an inspiration to filmmakers, and I just want to say it is. And it's like a full circle moment, because one of the things that got me interested in filmmaking from the get-go was Sam Raimi and the Evil Dead franchise. And not to get too deep or too personal, but last year was the absolute worst year of my life ever. And that's not an exaggeration. And if anyone that knows me, that is watching this video, especially my closest personal friends, you already know the multitude of bullshit that I went through last year. Every area of my life was falling apart. Had fallen apart. And I didn't want to be around anymore. I didn't want to be here. To the point where I made plans to not be around anymore. But I did what I could to get out of that mindset and focus on things to keep me going, such as things related to my career. I've been a part of some projects last year that haven't been released yet, and some of which I'm not done filming my scenes for. So I would like to be able to do those, and I also don't want to let anybody down. So that's been motivation for me to keep going. And since then, I've done other projects. It's only been a month of the new year, and I've already done a couple of things, and there's a couple more things on the way. So, in that regard, seeing Mark's hunger and passion and dedication to the craft, and seeing what an incredible job he's done with Iron Lung has helped keep the flame going, and has it's helped give me more motivation to keep chugging along, and has given me more inspiration as an artist, as a filmmaker, and especially as an actor. And so it's just this full circle moment this weekend in terms of seeing someone who helped start me go on this journey years ago, in addition to someone else helping to reiterate that journey, and you helped me take a step back and realize this is what I want to do and want to continue to do, and this is what I'm meant to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. And so I just want to say thank you to Sam Raimi, and thank you to Mark for making two incredible horror movies that have been released the same weekend. And they're both just so fucking good and deserve all the positive reviews and praise that they've been getting. And I hope both movies open people's eyes to what's possible when it comes to filmmaking. You know, Sam Raimi with his journey from being independent all the way back in 1981, and then seeing his journey from all those years ago to now, to where he is today. And Mark, from how we started with YouTube and now having the #1 movie in America, completely independent of any studio, self-financed, him and his team, and he did a beautiful job. I don't want to give too much away, but to be fair, since I somewhat reviewed Send Help, you know, it's a fine line when you adapt something like a video game, because you want to be faithful, but you don't want to be too faithful. You want to be able to adapt it, and if there's room to make changes, but not make so many changes to the point where it alienates people and it becomes unrecognizable to fans of the source material. Excuse me. And I think Mark and his team walked that fine line perfectly, because from what I know of the game compared to the movie, there was a lot of liberties that were taken, but it was still at the same time incredibly faithful, especially since, you know, he worked in tandem with the creator of the game and fleshed out the lore in the universe of Iron Lung to make a game that's, you know, like an hour-long experience, if that, depending on how you play it and what you do, into a 2-hour-long movie. And he nailed it. They nailed it. And I think, seeing as how Mark wore so many different hats for this, you know, from self-financing it to writing it and directing it and editing it and starring in it as well, I can't imagine the pressure that he was under, and, you know, the physical, mental, and emotional strain that he went through to get this movie made. I just hope he understands that he nailed it. He succeeded in making a phenomenal movie. Like, even separate from, like, his rabid, overly dedicated fan base, like, the movie stands on its own. He did a phenomenal job, and I hope this sends a message to people looking to get in the business, as well as people who are already a part of the business, that, you know, you can do anything if you put your mind to it, as they say. And, like, yeah, sure, Mark is popular, and he's very blessed to have the support that he does from fans and from, you know, however much money he's amassed from all the projects he's done in and out of YouTube. But, you know, he still did this on his own with his people, as opposed to going to a studio, and that's huge. And this movie was phenomenal. I was worried because of how the game is. I was worried if I would be bored during the movie, or if I felt like the movie would be too long, or, you know, I had concerns, and all of those were washed away within the first 25 minutes of the film. Like, I've seen some of the things people had issues with, and most of them I strongly disagree with. The only thing I can agree with in terms of issues are, when it comes to the radio speaker inside the sub, some of the dialogue is a little hard to understand. So that's like an audio mixing thing. Because there's other voice lines that I could hear perfectly fine. So that, and I don't want to spoil anything. There's there's a scene where his character is doing something in the climax, like literally within the last 15 minutes of the film. Uh, I'll just say this: there's a lot of swinging going around, and the camera was a little too shaky for me to be able to enjoy what I was looking at. And I get it. Like, that is a tactic to give you that sense of franticness of what is going on. But I don't know if I'm trying to say personally feel from seeing so many movies that there's a way to do that without it being overly disorientating and painful to look at. Or if they could have just done something different aside from having the camera shaking with the action that was going on. And some of the lighting in that particular sequence, it was hard to see what was going on. I know it's a dark area, and this isn't me trying to be an asshole, obviously. This isn't me trying to be overly critical. I'm just being honest in terms of if I were to critique something, those three things would be the only critiques I would have. Is the speaker, and then in the last 15 minutes of the film, the shaky cam coupled with the dimness of the lighting during that sequence. But other than that, it was like Iron Lung and Sin Help both 9 out of 10 movies. I don't really like doing scale of 1 to 10 ratings, but if I had to, I would say both are a 9 out of 10 for me. I love them both. And if I had a chance to see Iron Lung again before it leaves theaters, I would love to. I don't know if I'll be able to, but I would like to see it again. I really enjoyed it. And yet Mark he knocked it out of the park. And Sam knocked it out of the park. They both did phenomenal jobs with what they were given to work with the movies that they made that have been released this weekend. So, and I know there's more I wanted to say about both movies, but this is already too long of a video. I wanted to make this like less than 7 minutes, and here it is at 22 minutes. But anyways, in conclusion, both movies are fucking phenomenal, and we are lucky and blessed to have Sam Raimi and Markiplier making amazing films like Send Help and Iron Lung. So in conclusion, if you can, go see both movies. If you can only see one, see whichever of the two you want to see, because you're not going to go wrong with either. Thank you, Sam Raimi. Thank you, Markiplier.